Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this month's cafe, which, as Mary explained, is going to be about menopause and weight management. From the sign up that we had for this cafe, we understand how interested everybody is. And we know that, when I was very excited to start preparing this talk and to find out what the new research shows and what, if I've missed anything in the recent months, but because it's an issue that affects us all, regardless of whether we've struggled all our lives with weight and keeping our weight optimized, or we've women who are health and fitness enthusiasts and they haven't had to give it much thought, the weight management. When we come to that time of perimenopause, menopause, it seems to be a unified problem and something that affects us both physically and mentally, and definitely from where I come from and my colleagues as well, it occupies part of every consultation that we have, whether it is the initial consultation that we've just met the woman or later on in a review somewhere, it always comes up and we know how important it is. Let me see. Yeah, so today I thought the best way to tackle this is to spend some time, perhaps the first half of this hour, to explain the reasons why we see these changes. And this is, as I said, majority, if not all women are affected by this issue. And I think the best thing to do is to try to have more insight and understanding as to what happens during this time. And I think it's only then that we can start to manage it and to see what is most helpful for us. Because as you'll see in the next hour, it really isn't one thing that is affected. I wish there was one pill or one kind of diet that I could advise my ladies to do to help them along this path, but as I'll explain in this hour, you'll see that there really isn't. So today we'll, in the first half, I'll go through the hormones and how they affect our weight, and I'll touch on the hunger hormones, our genetics, and how to optimize them, and how the very important stress and insulin resistance affects our weight. Of course, I'll go through some advice about what kinds of food are good at this point in our lives, the importance of sleep in our weight management, and of course the significance of our self-care. So there are many factors that affect influence our weight. But when I was researching it and thinking about it, I think the top four have to be the ones that I have stated on this slide. So they're mainly, especially at this time of perimenopause, fluctuations and rapid fall in our female hormones, our genetics and the balance of our hunger hormones, our stress levels, and sleep. If these are the four main topics and four main factors affecting weight. So just going through them, how estrogen affects our body fat composition. Estrogen receptors, as you may know, are found absolutely everywhere in our body. And what happens at perimenopause, which is the stage prior to menopause, is that our body starts to recognize that there is a drastic fall and a fluctuation in this very important hormone. And our body is actually very clever. It has a compensatory program to replace that estrogen itself, and it does that through fat cells. Fat cells produce estrogen and they increase in size and number, and it does this by start initiating cravings for unhealthy food, fats and sugars, in order to increase the number of fat cells so that we can have the estrogen that is missing at this point. And that results in increased deposition of fat around the abdomen, something that of course everybody hates. And also it happens internally in our internal organs, and it's called the visceral fat, that it causes a number of long-term health conditions, for example, like diabetes. Another important hormone, and people who know me very well know that I give as much emphasis on this hormone as I do to estrogen, is progesterone. Progesterone is normally released at mid-cycle when we ovulate. So once the egg has been released, the remnant of the sac releases the progesterone. It has sedative properties, so it helps us to maintain our sleep and to have a good quality of sleep. Progesterone is one of the first hormones that goes out of whack at perimenopause, because what happens is, although women could have very irregular cycles, but it doesn't mean that they're ovulating at every cycle. So for any time from mid-30s, early 40s onwards, the number of anovulatory cycles, these are cycles whereby ovulation has not occurred, increases, and that with it brings about the low progesterone level. So estrogen and progesterone are both really important in our sleep, and they have anti-inflammatory properties as well. Sleep is crucial in our weight management, because when we, at perimenopause, when there is a lack of estrogen, that causes symptoms that we might be familiar with, the hot flushes and night sweats, and that can disturb our sleep, and also the sleep hormone melatonin, which can also fall. Lack of progesterone, as I explained, during the time of perimenopause with the number of anovulatory cycles, can add to that poor quality of sleep. And when you haven't had enough sleep, your body is stressed. It increases cortisol level, which is our stress hormone, that results in early waking up and food cravings, even in the middle of the night when you wake up. Joint and muscle aches are actually quite common in perimenopause. And they're as a result of the reduction in the female hormones, which also have anti-inflammatory properties. And this joint pain and aches results in reduction. It might be just slight reduction in physical activity, but inevitably that adds up through time. And of course, we know that exercise is crucial in weight management, as well as being quite important in our psychological and general well-being. Testosterone, advertised as the male hormone, is a very important female hormone as well. Our ovaries produce testosterone, but its production, not as drastic as estrogen and progesterone, but gradually it does drop through menopause and perimenopause. And this results in reduction in muscle mass and lower energy levels, which sort of makes you not want to do the physical activity as much as before. Muscle is very, very important in our metabolism. When the level falls, our baseline metabolism falls with it. So even though women can often say, and they're correct in saying that I'm consuming the same number of calories as before, how come I'm putting on weight? It's because you're not burning it as fast, as much as before. Now, coming to our genetics and hunger hormones, there are two players here. There's the leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is a hormone that fat cells produce, and it reduces our appetite. Ghrelin is a hormone that is produced in our stomach, and it signals to our brain that she's hungry, and it stimulates appetite and wanting to eat. Genetics, of course, we each, like any other part of us, even the control of leptin and ghrelin are genetically controlled, but it's important to know that sleep and stress levels play a very important regulatory method on these two hormones. Poor sleep increases ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and it reduces the leptin, which is the appetite suppressant. So you feel hungry and you respond to it, and of course the weight gain starts. Fatty foods generally, they add to this dysregulation of these two hormones. So even though you may have had quite a balance of these two hormones, like there should be a balance between your estrogen and progesterone, these two hormones should be balanced out. And by eating processed or fatty food, that results in dysregulation of these two, and of course weight gain. There's also something called leptin resistance, which is you may be producing good quantity of leptin, which is what signals to reduce appetite, but your body becomes resistant to that leptin, so it doesn't recognize that it is full, and therefore the eating process continues. Our nervous system is supported by our female hormones. It's really important to recognize this. So when we have a fall in our female hormone levels at perimenopause, there is a physiological stress starts. Now our body doesn't recognize, this stress response, or what we know as fight or flight, whether it is due to the fall of the hormone levels that makes us physiologically stressed, or whether you are faced by a wild animal. The reaction your body goes through is very similar, actually. And what happens is it prepares you to flee that danger, and to run away very quickly. So there's two hormones that are coming to action. One is adrenaline, which increases our heart rate and pulse rate so that we can run away. And another one is cortisol, which releases glucose, sugar, so that you have quick fuel and you can run as fast as you can. High glucose level, it signals to insulin to release, and the unused glucose, so the glucose that has been released because of cortisol and hasn't been used up due to physical activity, is stored away as fat, so it can be used again if there is a fight or flight situation. Chronic stress is something that a lot of women have and don't recognize, because it's very easy and very loosely used in everyday, that I'm stressed, everybody seems to be a little bit stressed, but this is physiological stress where cortisol actually is under no regulation. And that leads to insulin resistance. And it can actually lead to many chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, like heart disease. At perimenopause and menopause, there's a higher percentage of incidence of diseases like diabetes, like high cholesterol level. These are women who never had problems with their cholesterol. Suddenly at menopause, they see that even though their lifestyle hasn't changed that much, but their cholesterol is now out of control, or their blood pressure seems to be out of control. Neurotransmitters and gut health. Now, neurotransmitters are chemicals that are released by our brain, and they affect our mood and our reward centers in the brain. The top players here are the ones that I've mentioned below: dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. And you may have heard of these because there are chemicals that are used in antidepressants as well. So dopamine they're naturally produced by our brain as well. So dopamine is released when we think about a pleasurable experience, and it is linked with that repeated behavior such as comfort eating. So it makes you feel better, that and that's why you reach out and you eat. That's when you're feeling down or anxious and you reach out for food to eat. That's the sort of physiology behind it. And oxytocin is produced by the brain and gut, as well as serotonin, produced by both of these systems, brain and gut, and they regulate our mood as well as our appetite. And that's why it's so important to look at our gut health closely during this time, to make sure that these neurotransmitters that play such a big role in management of our mood and appetite and weight are under control. Now, with all of that in mind, I hope you can see that there isn't. It's a very personalized and tailor-made advice that you should be getting for your weight management when you come to this transitional time of menopause and perimenopause, because prior to this time, you could have had a crash diet or reduced your intake or increased your activity for a couple of days or couple of weeks, and seen a result. But inevitably, for everyone across board, when they come to this point, it is we have to dig a little bit deeper to find out what it is that is giving them that difficulty with their weight management, or why they're gaining weight. Is it their stress level? Is it their hunger hormones? Is it that their female hormones are out of whack, or something else? And that's why there needs to be some proper time and advice given to this in order to get the best long-term solution. So it's really important to keep a food diary and to track your meals and snacks, but as well as your mood, to identify where the tricky times are. Quite often I hear from women that, you know, they have very little breakfast, or I don't know why I seem to be eating very little, but I'm still gaining weight, or I can't lose the weight around my middle section. But are you snacking and are you snacking because you're stressed or bored? Have you skipped meals, and that causes actually a sugar dip, which then results in the subsequent insulin difficulty, insulin resistance, and weight gain? Looking at gut health is really, really important to make sure that women are not, constipated, that their gut health, they have good microbiomes in there, they can digest food properly. So eating a variety of that rainbow fruit and vegetables that looks after our gut health is crucial, as well as making sure that we have good microbiome on board. So fermented food, fiber-rich foods. Now, fasting is an interesting one. I get asked about this quite often, but we can consider time-restricted eating, which is, there's many different methods of it, but we can try by having a sort of food-free time for about 12 hours, let's say from 8 or 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. Because this is sort of, there have been studies on this to show that as well as promoting weight loss, it has other health benefits like boosting our immune system, reducing blood sugar levels, especially in ladies who are peri or pre-diabetic. So we should be aiming to have 3 meals and avoiding to snack too much. But the 3 meals, is important to look at the quantity of it and to make sure that it is a balanced meal, to make sure that it has proteins, the healthy fats, fiber, and complex carbohydrates. Eating less often avoids these peaks in insulin, which can really make the burning the calorie very difficult. So including also herbs and spices like fresh turmeric, ginger, things like that, it supports our blood sugar and stops the dips, because the important thing about the sugar and the insulin, and when you eat, the quantity that you eat and what you eat. So you really, every bit of it, you have to consciously pay attention until it becomes second nature to see what, it may be that you need to add this, spice or whatever to keep you fuller for longer period of time. And of course, eating healthy carbs like the whole grains and the lean proteins to reduce your hunger hormone, ghrelin, and to keep you fuller for longer. Staying well hydrated, because of course, as we know, that also reduces the hunger hormone. Increasing the activity, we know exercise and activity, we've been told, and we've a lot of, actually, I'm proud to say, a lot of women that I consult with are extremely fit and they exercise and they're very active. But we have to also, when it comes to menopause, even our exercise, we need to pay more attention. It's not just, maybe what you were doing before, it's not the solution right now. So I highly recommend really even speaking to an exercise specialist about this to find out what it is that you're doing. Maybe maybe just a little tweak that it needs. So as well as doing an aerobic exercise, of course, to increase your heart rate, it is really important to make sure that the muscle is built. So that strength exercise and building muscle, which is the calorie burner, is absolutely essential. And it's good to know that, you know, we start losing muscle mass, something that is called sarcopenia, approximately at a staggering rate of 8% per decade from our early 40s onwards, which results in that reduction in metabolism. Sleep, as I explained earlier on, is important in our, you know, mental health, in how we cope with the following day, and with our weight management. And of course, everybody is a little bit different in how much sleep they need. So looking at what you've always needed, but you know, some studies have shown that people who sleep a bit longer, 8 to 10 hours, they have better sensitivities to the hormone that signals for fullness in your body, and it reduces cravings. Of course, if you haven't had enough sleep, you feel very stressed, and that fight or flight mode is switched on, cortisol is switched on, and cortisol signals for sugar. So your cravings start if you haven't had enough sleep. You need to manage your stress in the most meaningful way for you, and in the way not what works for your colleague or friend. It may be something totally different for you, and it's important to spend some time studying what works for you. Is it meditation, tapping, breathing, walking in nature, reading a magazine, talking to a friend, whatever it is that, you know, not everybody finds going to the gym or doing, you know, hours of aerobic exercise relaxing. For some people it is relaxing. For some people they need to do that as their physical activity, but then they need another method to relax. Be kind to yourself. Speak to yourself the way you speak to your friend, with compassion and kindness. We don't do that often. You know, as women, we do learn as time goes by to be compassionate to our, you know, our own kind, to be kind and speak, and to have time for our friend or colleague. But maybe we should spend some time with ourselves to use those words to be less criticizing. And it really works. It subconsciously starts to work, and it calms you down. Daily gratitude is another thing. You know, I sometimes tell my woman that I consult with, write down 3 things that you're really grateful for every day. And you'll be surprised, because it's the time that you take to write it down, to see what has been happening that day, that it's a reflective time, and it's a time that you can almost meditate and with yourself. It helps to reduce the stress hormones, it reduces cortisol, and it promotes a healthier lifestyle. So, as I explained, the quick fix diets that may have worked in the past, when it comes to menopause, unfortunately, they really don't work, because not only do they reduce your metabolic rate, but they increase cortisol. And if it was one thing, even out of all 4 important factors in management of weight, I would say really pay a lot of attention to your cortisol level. Of course, you know, we can check that. The best way to check it is via a saliva test. You know, a lot of naturopath, Vera Martins is our naturopath that I know. She does cortisol checking, and it's basically it plots your cortisol against the normal cortisol levels, and there's ways to fix it. There isn't a pill that you can take to you know, increase it if it's too low, or to vice versa, but there are ways, lifestyle changes. There's some minerals and some herbs that you can take to correct that. Again, these quick fix diets, they can actually make the fat deposition more stubborn, and it'll be more difficult to lose it. And quite often you're losing your weight may be coming down, but that's because the muscle is breaking down, because you're not feeding your body enough. And it also negatively impacts on the quality of hair and skin, which is another big topic and a problem at this point anyway. So eliminating or reducing added sugar, this includes sweeteners and simple carbohydrates, is a must. And to that end, of course, alcohol has to take to that reducing sugar level, because as we know, it's empty calories. Drinking alcohol, of course, increases the sugar levels, and a whole process of that insulin and dips start. And it also negatively impacts your sleep. It makes management of hot flushes and night sweats much more difficult. I hope that in the last this time that we've had together, you can understand that there isn't one thing, one pill or one type of diet to fix every health sort of weight management problem that we're presented with. Everyone is an individual. Everybody works very differently because our body shapes are very different. How we metabolize calories prior to reaching menopause is different. What we need, even from HRT point of view, our hormone replacement, very similarly is different. I can't if every woman could just take the same balance of hormones to replace herself and feel that would have been soon over the counter, but it doesn't work like that, because we're also individually made and we react to these things very differently. So of course, replacing your declining hormone levels has a significant role in your weight management, because it helps your metabolism. It also reduces the symptoms that stop you from sleeping. It reduces cortisol level, but also there's other players in it, like what we discussed with the sugar levels, with cortisol, with stress management. Perimenopause is a transitional time in life, and it's a great opportunity for us to look at press the reset button and look at our general health and well-being, as well as replacing our hormones, but really paying a closer look at everything to see how we can go from here, how we can move forward. Don't look at a short-term fix. Don't be fixated by the scales, because as I said, muscle mass is heavier than fat, and just because you are losing weight very fast, it doesn't mean that you will maintain it for long term, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's good for your health. Make small changes. Don't do something that will stress you even more and send your cortisol level even higher, but do something that has a long-term benefit. And also it optimizes both your physical and psychological health. And that's why I think it's a good point, like how you would go to a specialist for your hormone replacement. It's also a good time to look at the bigger picture, perhaps even have a consultation with a fitness or exercise specialist who knows about women's health and menopause, and also with a naturopath who can look at your cortisol level to see what further can be done to help it. If this is a picture of our lovely Mary, who was speaking to you early on, a patient liaison manager. If you have questions about this, or if you want to find out more, we're offering this free 15-minute discovery call with Mary, who can take you through some basic services that we offer, if you're interested. I'll stop sharing now.